Hey everybody, my name's Erik Amill, and this is HoA Presents. In this last video of 2019, I do a brand new take on a pick from 2009 and discuss the changes in skill during those 10 years since the original was drawn. One thing I personally love to do is look back at my older work and see how far I've come since then. I have sketchbooks, loose pages, and digital files from as far back as my high school years and then some. Unlike many others, I'm lucky in that I have no real strong negative feelings connected to those old images. Instead, they're like my battle scars, the embarrassing and sometimes painful bits of my past that helped me get to where I am today. With 2019 coming to a close and 2020, a year that was still considered the far future even for things I grew up on in the 80s and 90s, fast approaching after this audio gets recorded, I'm more than happy to give a short look back at how I've grown over this last decade. So, please, sit back, get comfy, and enjoy the show. Hold up, before we start the new pick, let's go back to the old one. Okay, so this is the original pick. The file name listed it as Mog Knight Lady. The date on the image reads December 4th, 2009. It was drawn in a nice hardcover sketchbook that I had that replaced the moleskin that I was using. It started out as a random doodle to test a 4H pencil with some sketchy lead in it, and it slowly became what you see here. Nothing was planned, it all just kinda came together according to the description on it from over on my DevArt account. Now, this wasn't the first Mog Knight I'd drawn that year, and it sure wouldn't be the last, as it's a design idea that I tend to go back to over the years. With that short description out of the way, now we can start. It's been a little over 10 years since that last image was drawn. In that time, I've made many more images, both randomly coming together like the original one, and ones with purpose behind them like this new one. I've racked up countless hours drawing comics and new designs, practicing shapes and poses, researching items and materials, and even made an effort to change how I worked as a whole. The main change from that early image and this new one is simple. I stopped acting like what I was doing was a side gig. Like, despite having a degree in graphic design and having put in work at a company as their lead artist, designing images and materials for clients for a number of years, that I was drawing just to draw, and this whole art thing was a temporary gig. Mind you, this was drawn 3 years into doing Biff, 2 as a full-time gig, and yet these thoughts lingered from the various comments from folks from years past. My biggest change was I started acting like the cartoonist I claimed to be, instead of feeling like an imposter. Someone who was just pulling one over on everyone and was about to be found out. I stopped worrying, and I started just being me. As for image-specific items, I stopped cutting corners. I have stuff I use for reference to help with positioning and perspective. I put in time looking up things for her armor and weapons so I can better render them in my own style. I have a better understanding of how to treat the items I'm drawing as if they're objects in 3D space and not flat things on the page. I've also seemed to have gone full-on big 80s anime hair on her instead of the scraggly do I gave her in the original one. Let's just call that one an upgrade. Another thing that I've done is I've made it a point to add details when needed or necessary. It's the little things that take this from a plain image of a bland sourpuss with scuffed pauldrons to the story of a battle-worn knight who has seen her fair share of action. Her armor has weight, and the materials that make it up have different folds and feels to them. Her shield is larger than the tiny buckler from before. In contrast, her sword is smaller, a better size for someone who, in theory, can fly. Her items are as dinged up as she is. With this redraw, she's gained a facial scar, her ear has been sliced, and her wings are slightly scarred. And yet, with all that visible damage, she stands defiant. She's not looking down at the ground as she was before. No, instead she's looking up at her opponent off screen, her glaring, dare for them to test her blade. In a way, she's like me. It wasn't an easy road to get where I'm at now from where I was 10 years ago. It was a fight, one that, despite it all, I can say I've somehow managed to make it through. That battle isn't over yet. But I know that, come what may, I'm still here. And I'm still ready to go. So here's to another 10 years of growth. And many more Mog Knights.
Thanks for watching. If you dug it, hit the like button and maybe share this with your friends. Want to see more of my work? Simply follow the links in the description below. You can check out my webcomic, Biff the Vampire, at sillyvamp.com. Maybe even scoop some merch to keep this art train going. Shout out to my backers on Patreon. Without your help, this wouldn't be possible. As always, till next time folks,